Hello, this is Don Carter. In this video, I'd like to cover subconscious processing and how it's guided by our mental filters. By now, you have watched several of my other videos and know at least a little bit about neural networks and how we create a vast matrix of networks, embedded in networks, and so forth. You may even have developed an appreciation for the fact that our neural circuitry is much more sophisticated than all the networks of computers that make up our global internet. In this video, I want to give you a little bit of an idea about how our supercomputer brain processes all the information and data that we take in from the world around us. It is with this sensory data that we make our own map of the world. That map making begins in infancy because the subconscious records and codes every significant emotional event in our life, positive or negative. Experiencing each of these significant emotional events lead us to develop strongly held core beliefs about ourselves, about others, and about the world in general. These strongly held core beliefs become the mental filters that guide our subconscious processing. Those of you who know me well have heard me talk about the fact that we all have many different parts. Yes, our personality is a unique system, and the present-centered adult self-energy is not a part. It is the essence of who we are. Remember, the mind and the brain are not the same thing. The mind is that moment-to-moment experience of being me. It's not encumbered by the past and not fully projected onto the future. Everything I just said is in the past. Everything I'm going to say is in the future. The mind is my adult self-energy. It's grounded in the here and now, which is a very minute sliver of time between the past and the future. Maybe that's why they call it a minute. Staying in the moment is difficult because we can get triggered easily into unfinished business from the past by various parts of self. And we can get projected off into the future by other parts of self. These parts of self have accumulated over the most impressionable years of our lives and onward, and based on the imprint experiences by which they were created, each of these parts have gathered their own core beliefs about self, about others, and about the world in general. In order to maintain self-leadership, we need to remain grounded in the present moment, with curiosity, clarity, compassion, confidence, and sometimes even courage. Self-leadership is that growth-oriented moment-to-moment experience of being me. It's the me that's not a part. It's my mind, also known as awareness or consciousness. Check out my video on the flashlight of awareness to learn more about this adult self-energy. With the ability to stay focused and grounded in the here and now, we can identify and correct negative mental filters that are holding us back or limiting us in some way. And remember our formula from the flashlight of self-awareness: negative does not exist. It is simply the absence of its positive opposite. If you've not seen that video, I would encourage you to stop and watch it now. Given all this, it would benefit us to know a little more about subconscious processing, how it works, and the role mental filters play in making our maps of reality. So in this video, we're going to explore how we take in data from the world around us, how that data is processed based on those strongly held core beliefs, that is, our mental filters, and how we output the processed data, attracting more of the same. We will then learn a little bit about what we can do about it. The good news is that we can change our neural circuitry and rewire the brain in ways that will support us rather than sabotage or limit us. Let's begin. This is a map of how we make our maps of the world, or our maps of reality. On the left side of the diagram we have the world, and then there's our sensory input channels. Then the circle represents the doorway to the subconscious mind. Then the book of shoulds and musts and ought tos, our mental filters. and then a map room containing all the cognitive maps we make out of that processing. And that final column is how we output data. The world is everything outside my skin. We spend our whole life taking in information from the world around us and building a map of reality based on that incoming data. The data comes in through our sensory input channels. It's what I see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. At any given moment in the here and now, there are upwards of 2 million bits of hear, see, feel data trying to enter into my subconscious for processing. We take in that data through our sensory input channels. Our input channels include what we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. Now, we can't possibly process 2 million bits of hear, see, feel data at any moment in time. However, the subconscious mind can process about 40,000 bits of data per second. How does it know which data to let in? This circle represents what I call the doorway to the subconscious mind. It is the Reticular Activating System, or RAS. That's an area of the brain that has several structures that are built for sorting and sifting through incoming data. There are 3 processes that it uses to sift through that data: generalization, deletion, and distortion. So how does it know what data to let in and what data to screen out? Imagine that there's a doorman to the subconscious mind standing there with a clipboard, having a list of names of who can get in and who can't. That clipboard would be made of the mental filters. Those are strongly held personal beliefs that we have about many different things. If a strongly held personal belief is on that clipboard, then information supporting that would be allowed in. Any information not supporting those strongly held personal beliefs would be screened out. Here's an example of how that might work. Let's say a guy named John, 45 years old, comes in for counseling. He says he's depressed, and he even knows why. It's because I'm not worth caring about, he tells the counselor. When the counselor asked John where he thinks that came from, John said, well, my father was an alcoholic, and he used to spend all of his time telling me how worthless I was. The only problem is the old man was right. Nobody has ever cared about me because I'm not worth caring about. Well, the counselor notices that John's been married for 25 years, and so he asks, what about your wife? John said, no, she doesn't even care about me. And the counselor says, well, I have a little trouble wondering how she's been with you 25 years and she doesn't care about you. And the Super Bowl was on that Sunday, so the counselor suggested that he come by for John's Super Bowl party and just kind of hang out and observe and pick up some details to see whether or not it's true if his wife doesn't care about him. So Super Bowl Sunday comes and goes, and the counselor hangs out, and they meet in session the next week. The counselor looks at John and he says, John, I counted 63 times your wife sent you a caring message. John said, what are you talking about? I didn't even catch one. Well, the counselor had a little handheld tape recorder in his coat pocket, and so he pulled that out and he played it. Sure enough, 63 messages that could be considered caring coming from John's wife to him. And John, when he heard the first one, says, oh, well, we just had company. And the next one, oh, she just wanted something from me. And for every subsequent message that could be considered caring, John discounted it or blew it off. Now, this is a great example of the process of generalization, deletion, and distortion. The strongly held personal belief was John's generalization. I'm not worth caring about. No one could ever care about me. When his wife sent him any caring messages, John deleted it. Not on purpose. His subconscious mind did that for him because his mental filters were set to believe that no one could care about him. So how did that deletion occur? Well, we even have ways of saying it. Man, that went right over his head. Or that went in one ear and out the other. Or that didn't even register. When the counselor pulled out the tape recorder and played those caring messages, John's subconscious mind could not delete them. They had to be distorted by the part of self that holds the limiting belief that I'm not worth caring about. I refer to them as parts of self, but other people call them defense mechanisms or psychological defenses or some other clinical term. These parts of self came along when the experience that created them occurred and were coded on a certain area of the neural matrix in their own little neural network. This is the subconscious mind's attempt to make sense out of the world and other people and our experience of ourselves. So when a strongly held personal belief gets in through the doorway, there's this weirdly satisfying emotional charge that we can call the confirmation of the existential position. That weirdly satisfying emotional charge may come with a self-statement that says something like, "Dang it, I knew that was going to happen. Why'd I get my hopes up? Things are never going to change." That actually strengthens the limiting core belief, making it stronger and moving it up higher on the list of who gets in through the doorway. We have these mental filters about our spirituality, our identity, our values, beliefs, memories, and experiences, our programs like how to do things, like how to build an engine or how to cook a meal or how to do our job. And then we have strongly held personal beliefs about our survival. Now, it's important to notice that the subconscious mind does not make a distinction between negative and positive. It just knows what intensity is. If an emotional charge is intense, it will be encoded on a neural network. That intensity might be negative, it might be positive, but only the conscious mind knows if that's the case. Negatives are processed at the conscious level. Now, something else to consider is that there are over 7 billion people in the world. How many of them do you think have exactly the same mental filters? How many of them have an identical spirituality, identical sense of identity, identical book of values, identical beliefs, memories and experiences from the same town, the same family, the same day, in the same way, or the same programs and survival needs? I doubt there are any two people in the world that have an identical book of shoulds. So who has the right book? The answer is that we all do. We have positive mental filters and negative mental filters. The only question is, which ones do we want to edit out? And when we edit out a negative thought or core belief, then we keep the part that holds it, but we teach it a new belief or a new thought. So we're not trying to get rid of any parts of self. We're trying to get rid of strategies and beliefs that limit us or hold us back. Okay, now you see this area that says My Maps. This is a map room, if you will. It's where I keep all my cognitive maps stored away. Of course, each of these maps are encoded on their own neural network. I have maps for everything. I have maps for how to tie my shoe, how to brush my teeth, how to do my job. I even have maps on how to do relationships or how to do love. So let me give you an example of a cognitive map and how we output this data that we've stored away in that map room. Let's say I'm a codependent man and I've just gotten out of my third codependent relationship. I feel like I've been chewed up and spit out by a lawnmower. But it's been over 6 months now, and my buddies think it's time for me to get back in the game. So they throw a party and they invite 50 women. 49 of them are as healthy as can be. Only one is an alcoholic. Who do you think I end up with? That's right, 4 minutes or less, and I'm walking out the door with the only alcoholic in the room. How does this keep happening to me? Do I have a stamp on my forehead? No, I have an area at the base of my skull called the reticular activating system. And when I walk in that room, I'm leaking out of every pore of my body, hear, see, feel data about my love map. And the people, if they're interested in that room, are leaking their data out of their pores as well. It's like pheromones. So I talked to the first one and we kind of talk and have a good conversation, but nothing really happens there. So I move on and talk with someone else, and that goes okay too, but it just didn't click. Eventually I noticed this woman over in the corner, and she seems kind of intriguing to me. I don't know what it is exactly, but I head over there and we begin to talk, and before you know it, things are getting a little bit more exciting and we're in sync with each other, and I'm feeling something, and then suddenly the earth moves. And what do you know? She feels it too. That's because all the while our subconscious was auditioning to see if our love maps were compatible. Turns out that an alcoholic love map and a codependent love map are highly compatible. If she's all about her and I'm all about her too, of course that's compatible. But the other women in the room don't play that game. They're healthy, and so there was no chemistry. The data that are leaking out of each of our pores at the rate of millions of bits per moment are called paramessages. They're in how I walk, how I talk, how I look, how I sound, how I behave, how I respond or how I don't respond, the raise of an eyebrow, or how I sit or stand. It's how I carry myself. So there's a lot of nonverbal communication happening at the subconscious level. And if I ever want to have a healthy, happy, enriching relationship, I will need to tinker with my love map. So in this example, we talked about a very sophisticated network on how to do love. And the codependent network is not just one core belief involved. There's a whole system of beliefs about myself and about other people, and about relationships in general. So if I'm going to change those neural circuits, it's going to take some pretty pervasive work on my part. Let me give you an example of how we go about changing our love map or other complex neural circuitry that we've been living with intensity and repetition over and over again for years, if not decades. So I call this one Zebras and Giraffes. It's a story about a woman who comes to counseling. She's alcoholic, she's 45 years old, her third husband just left her. She lives in a small town, and she reaches out to the counselor there. The counselor's not sure he's going to be able to help her because they have a history together. She's been into counseling for a couple of different episodes of her alcoholism. Nothing's ever gotten her attention well enough to make the changes that she needs to make. This time was different though, and she told him that. She said, I can't take it anymore. I can't continue on the way I'm going. I can't get a job. I'm going to lose my car. I don't have any support left. I've burned all my bridges. You've got to help me. So the counselor says, okay, we'll give it another try. But you have to make this agreement. She said, what's that? He said, you need to go down to the AA meeting down the street here 3 times a week and come see me once a week. She goes, oh, no, you don't understand. I don't do groups like that. And he says, yes, I do understand, and I know you don't do groups like that. But if I'm going to help you, we need the support of those people down there who've walked the walk and have been there and done that. So she agrees to go. Doesn't feel like she belongs in one of those meetings, and when she walks in the door, she finds out she was absolutely 100% correct. She doesn't belong there. She's like a zebra walking into a room full of giraffes. That's because she's been hanging out at the bar at the other end of the street for decades. That's where all the other zebras hang out. Everybody knows her name there, and she knows them. They all have mental filters that are set up to support their ability to keep drinking, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that says it's not good for you. Now she walks into this room full of giraffes. These are the people who have mental filters that are set up for sobriety, talking about how wonderful it is to be able to get through the day without a drink, or to get through the day and not even have a thought of a drink. She can't understand how that makes them happy, but she keeps going anyway because she promised that she would. So she keeps going for 3 weeks and nothing really happens. And she does notice, though, that this woman across the table from her used to be a zebra. Now she's a giraffe. That got her curiosity going. Then she heard other people there that sound like they used to be zebras, and now they're giraffes. How did that happen? If it happened for them, maybe it can happen for me. So she keeps going. Then one day, the bank calls. They're coming to get her car. She hasn't been able to get a job to keep the payments up. She lives in a small town and everyone knows her reputation, so she's become unemployable. She's burned all the bridges with friends and family and nobody will give her a loan or help her out. Now they're going to come and get her car and she won't have a way to get around or a way to even get to these meetings or the counselor's office. So she's having a very bad day, and she walks into the room in her AA meeting and sits down at the table, and everyone's in there giggling and laughing and having a good time, and it's starting to really irritate her because things are only getting worse. So eventually she just slams her coffee cup down on the table and says, "I don't understand you people. How do you keep so happy in the midst of all this?" And they asked her what was going on, and she told them the bank's coming to get her car. She doesn't even know how she's going to be able to get there. Nobody's going to be there for her. She doesn't have any friends, and on and on. And then she heard someone giggling in the back of the room. This was really offensive to her, so she turned around, and that person says, "Oh, don't mind me, no offense. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at me. I've been where you are. I know exactly how you feel." And so do most of the other people in this room. She asks them, "What do you mean, you know?" "Well, we've been there and done that." So she says, "Yeah, but I've been coming here for almost 3 months now. Nothing's changed." They told her that's why some people there were giggling, because you can't just come and sit at the meeting and hope to get quality sobriety. It's a program of action. You have to take what you hear here and use it, apply it in your life out there to see what recovery skills and tools will work for you. She goes, "Oh, great. So what tool do you think is going to help me in my situation when they come and get my car tomorrow? What do I do?" They said, "Well, you've done everything you can do. Doesn't sound like there's anything else you can do. So in that case, we suggest using the tool of letting it go and turning it over to your higher power. It's no longer your problem, it's his problem." She doesn't see how that's going to work, but she has no other choice. She goes home, gets down on her knees before bed. She tells God everything that's been going on. She says, "They told me at that meeting I need to come and give this to you. I know that I'm a burden and I don't want to be that for you, but I don't know what else to do, so I'm doing what they told me." Then she crawled up in the bed, went to sleep, and had the best night's sleep ever. She got up the next day feeling refreshed and invigorated and strangely happy, even though they were coming to get her car today. She cleaned the house and ate breakfast and went out to get the mail, and when she opened the mailbox, she found something that was quite surprising to her. Oh boy, it was a letter from the IRS. She opened it and began to read. It said that we've been auditing your tax returns and found that we've made a mistake and that you have a refund coming. So they included a check. She was stunned to find out the check was for the exact amount that would pay off the 3 months of back payments and 3 months ahead on her car. Needless to say, it was a stunning experience for her, and the intensity of it burned a neural network into her brain instantly that says, "Wow, this turning it over and letting it go really works." She was so excited when she returned for her next AA meeting. She told them all about it. They giggled and laughed and had a good time and talked about how wonderful recovery is. From that point on, she did everything they told her. She gathered more tools and tried them out and found several that worked really well for her. She couldn't get enough AA after that. She didn't have to go anymore. She just wanted to go. She had become a giraffe. Then one day, in walks another zebra. This story is a good example of how to make changes in your neural circuitry, especially if you're dealing with a very complex and sophisticated issue. This lady had decades-long alcoholism and failure after failure in her marriages. She's had a lot of intensity and repetition that built a very sophisticated network to support her ability to continue drinking. She went to her AA meeting and felt totally out of sorts because she did not have a neural network for that. She did not have any experience to create any neural circuitry for recovery. But as she stayed there, things began to happen, especially when she started taking action. Because when you take action, you find out if something works. When it works, then you have an intense reaction, and that starts connecting neural circuits together. People often ask me, how long do I need to keep going to those meetings, or how long do I need to keep going to therapy? I tell them, only until you want to. Then you'll never have to again. Thanks for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful.